You're getting a first glimpse, but that's your size compared. So those are among the tallest buildings in the world, including the Empire State Building, World Trade Center, Sears Tower, Chicago. So if you lay it on its side, you take 2 or 3 of them to fill it in. The width is almost 200 feet wide. And actually much more than 2,000, close to, including everything, it's about 2,500 feet in length to the end. And it's going to be beautiful. It was a great concept that never worked because they couldn't hold the water. Now they hold the water for a tiny fraction of the cost. We did a fantastic job. The Department of Interior was amazing. Doug Burgum, really absolutely amazing. And you're gonna have something you're gonna be very proud of, and it'll last for 50 to 100 years before you have to do anything. Very strong, powerful substance that we use.
This is Trump being missing for 8 days. And it ain't even, it's a blip on the screen for the people. Nobody even thinks about it. Do that. Hello. Welcome back to the channel, The Petty Politic. Welcome back. This is Trump, or that was Trump being missing for like 8 days. And what makes it so fascinating is not whether Donald Trump is healthy or not, but because look how quickly Republicans abandon the standards they spent 4 years applying to Joe Biden. During the Biden administration, every vacation, every trip to Delaware, every shortened schedule, every day out of public view became evidence that something must be wrong and that Americans deserved answers. Now we have a president who is largely absent from public view after a physical examination. And many of those same voices suddenly have no questions, no concerns, no demands for transparency. Just imagine a sitting president of the United States gets wheeled into an operating room. No press corps, no public announcement. A team of surgeons completely cuts out a massive portion of the leader's face, inserts a rubber prosthetic so he can speak, and sends him right back to the Oval Office. For 20 years, the American public is told he was just on a relaxing fishing trip. That isn't a plot line from a political thriller. That's documented history. And if you think we've outgrown that level of jaw-dropping secrecy, you're lying to yourself. Because right now, we are watching the exact same playbook unfold. Except this time, the rot isn't just happening inside the West Wing. It's happening all across this land in our collective brain. Let's be honest about what is actually happening here. Donald Trump undergoes a physical examination. Americans are told everything is fantastic, everything is fine. Then the president largely disappears from public view for 8 days. Suddenly, exact same people who spent 4 years conducting a daily, agonizing wellness check on Joe Biden wants everybody to mind their damn business. I didn't make this video to guess what is on Donald Trump's medical records. I'm not his fucking doctor. I don't have a secret leak, and I'm not claiming the man is sick. I made this video because the sudden deafening silence from the political right is the most dangerous thing in American politics today. Complicit with this bullshit. We need to call out the Republican Party right now. not because of a standard policy disagreement, but because they have completely shattered any illusion of holding an objective standard. For 4 freaking years, they built an entire media apparatus around the idea that the presidential visibility isn't just a PR metric. It's a matter of absolute national security. But the second the shoe is on the other foot, they want a blanket of total privacy. Where the hell has Donald Trump been for 8 damn days? Where the hell was he at for 8 damn days? Make no mistake, this is bad on both sides. This isn't just a Republican failure. It's a systematic American failure. Historically, white houses from both parties have treated transparency like a weapon of convenience. I get it. Democrats spent years aggressively shielding down Joe Biden from the exact same medical scrutiny they're now demanding from Donald Trump. Neither side can say they're clean on this. Neither one. But right now, the hypocrisy from the right has reached a fever pitch. You cannot spend 48 months screaming that the American people deserve answers about Joe Biden, and then the moment your guy, Donald Trump, steps out of the frame for 8 days, you're going to decide that asking questions is a betrayal of the office. Y'all need to stop. Listen to this. Hold on.
To suspicious about Donald Trump's latest medical report. Why? They are in a dilemma at the White House about this medical report. You basically have 2 options. You release the real report or you release a fake one. The real report, we knew, would undercut Trump's claims that this is the most perfect health, despite Trump being days from turning 80 and obese and doesn't exercise and terrible diet. Okay. So even if he's doing okay for his age, he's obese and there's this growing list of concerning symptoms. He can't walk in a straight line, the ankles, the bruises. The real report might be fine for his age, but way worse than the cult leader image that they've published for years. So then you've got the fake report option, which is you put together a propaganda document because Donald Trump's health has visibly deteriorated objectively over the last several years. They did ultimately release it at 11 p.m. on Friday night. 11 p.m. on Friday night is not when you release stuff you want people to see. When you see the report, you realize it is total and utter garbage, and it only raises suspicions even more. Now, of course, generically, it says Trump's in insanely good health. He's just so fit. Whatever. We expected it to say that. But a couple interesting things. They realized clearly that insisting that Trump weighs 224 is a fantasy. Nobody's going to believe that. So they're saying now his weight is 238. Now, one notable thing is they did a bunch of extra testing where it was to their advantage, but they didn't at least talk about extra testing when it wasn't. The report says Trump's hearing is intact. It's a pretty low bar, but they don't do a full audio test where they could say, actually, Trump's lost 35% hearing in one ear and 45 in the other. They just go, Trump's hearing is intact. That's suspicious when they have so much extra testing available and when they did so much extra testing in other areas. They could say his hearing is a little bit diminished. He's almost 80. It's okay. They can't admit it. Then we get to the cognitive tests. How many times has he taken this? Why is he taking it so many times? Why is that test being repeated at short intervals? The report from last week about Trump's tree trunk legs, the swelling, the edema, the 2026 report says Trump's slight lower leg swelling was noticed and it improved from last year. Last year, it wasn't on the report. So what they want you to now believe is that this is something,
Right.
because everybody can see it. His ankles are swollen like tree trunks, but it's gotten better since last year. Well, let's compare to last year's report. Last year's report mentions nothing.
White House has put David Pakman on their website as a media offender, left-wing lunacy for reporting on the president's failing health.
On his failing health, let's play the counterfactual. If Joe Biden had vanished for 8 days, following a medical evaluation, Republicans would have absolutely lost their damn mind. Fox News would have dedicated entire primetime lineups to it. Graphic packages would have been rendered by morning. Where's the president? What is he doing? Christ is the Oval Office. Every Republican member of Congress would have been lined up in front of a damn camera, practically tripping over each other to get a television spot. There would have been demands for hearings. There would have been threats of investigations. Where the hell is this auto pen stuff they talking about? There would have been endless high-minded conversations about the public's right to know and the cognitive decline, about fitness for office, about whether the American people were being actively lied to by a shadow cabinet. We heard all of that. We heard all of that last year. 2 years ago, I'm sorry. And maybe even 3 years ago. We noticed because we didn't just imagine all of that. We lived through all of that. Every Biden vacation became a lead story. Every Delaware trip treated like an abdication of his duty. Every early leave called by the press office at 1 p.m. was framed as proof of collapse. For years, we were told that the American people deserved answers. Now, suddenly, the very same people who demanded those answers have become remarkably comfortable with unanswering any questions. Nobody has any kind of commentary. Nobody cares about anything. Nobody wants to say anything about what's going on with Donald Trump.
There is no longer any doubt that Joe Biden is unfit to be our commander-in-chief. The Biden White House, far-left House Democrats, and the mainstream media are in complete disarray because they know this to be true and have been caught participating in one of the greatest media cover-ups in American history. For the last 3.5 years, House Republicans and the American people have been demanding details about Joe Biden's mental and physical decline. But every time we raise these legitimate concerns, far-left Democrats and their loyal stenographers in the mainstream media rushed to Biden's defense, claiming that the clearly diminished Joe Biden was as sharp as ever and accusing us of peddling conspiracy.
So why is it that you can do that and have press conferences and demand what's going on with Joe Biden, but it's crickets when it comes to Trump? Crickets when it comes to Trump. What happened, y'all? This your boy. And before somebody accuses me of partisan bias, let's step out of the current news cycle and look at the history of this office. Because if you think the survival instinct is a new phenomenon, you don't know the history of this presidency. The executive branch has a century-long proud tradition of treating the commander-in-chief's medical charts like classified nuclear secrets. I get that. Grover Cleveland discovered a massive malignant tumor in his mouth. We were in the middle of a brutal economic panic. Did the White House issue a transparent press release? Absolutely not. They told the public the president was going on a relaxing 4-day fishing vacation. Instead, Cleveland sneaked into a friend's yacht in the Long Island Sound, strapped himself to a chair against the mast, and had a team of surgeons cut out that massive portion of his upper jawline while the boat rocked on the water. He returned to Washington with a rubber prosthetic, and the public didn't find out the truth for nearly 2 decades. 1919, Woodrow Wilson suffered a devastating stroke that left him paralyzed on his left side. Did they invoke protocol? No. His wife and his personal doctor launched the most successful cover-up in American history. For 17 months, the president was a ghost. His wife intercepted state papers, decided who got to see him, and effectively ran the executive branch while the press office issued bland notes saying the president just needed rest. 1944, Franklin Roosevelt ran for a 4th term while actively dying of congenital heart failure. His doctors knew it. His inner circle knew it. But the administration aggressively intercepted cameras, staged photo ops, and manufactured a narrative of wartime vitality because the alternative, admitting the architect of the New Deal was failing, was politically unthinkable. JFK was sold to the world as a liberal picture of youth, vigor, and athletic vitality. Privately, John F. Kennedy was a man with a medical catastrophe, battling Addison's disease, chronic back degeneration, and colitis, relying on a daily cocktail of heavy steroids, painkillers, and amphetamines just to stand at a podium. Notice the pattern. across generations, across parties, across centuries. The first instinct of a White House is never transparency. The first instinct is control. The first instinct is to manage the narrative, shield the body, and release a heavy sanitized memo signed by a military doctor, using the prestige of the uniform to bully the press into stopping their questions. Which brings us back to the present day. When Joe Biden caught COVID and isolated in Delaware, the political right didn't say, let's respect his privacy. They didn't say, let's give him room to heal. They openly speculated that he was incapacitated. They questioned whether he was even alive. They questioned the White House physician was committing fraud. They argued that the presidential health is a matter of paramount public concern. And you know what? That is completely a legitimate argument. The presidency is not a normal job. You don't get the right to medical privacy when your finger is on the nuclear button. You just don't. If a president is incapacitated, the 25th Amendment exists for a reason, and the public has a right to know who's driving the bus. But administrations dread the 25th Amendment. Admitting a president is too sick to be seen for 4 days triggers a structural crisis. If a CEO disappeared for a week, the stocks drop. If a president disappears for 8 days, global adversaries look for weakness, and the cabinet has to secretly wonder if they need to invoke the Section 4 to strip him of his power. Because the constitutional mechanism for temporary disability is so extreme, administrations will always choose to pretend a sick man is perfectly fine rather than hand power to that vice president, even for 72 hours. What is not legitimate, though, is pretending that this golden standard of transparency only applies when the guy in the Oval Office has a different letter next to his name on the ballot. That is where this stops being a principled debate about governance and becomes a circus of tribalism. Because what we are watching right now with this Trump administration is a masterclass in the asymmetry of modern media. When Biden was in office, the right-wing media ecosystem treated every afternoon nap like a constitutional crisis, while the mainstream media ecosystem spent years rationalizing his absence as the deliberate pacing of a seasoned statesman. Now, the shoes have completely swapped to the other foot. The mainstream media is screaming about a lack of transparency, while the right-wing ecosystem suddenly discovers the virtue of giving a leader space to work without a camera in his face. Make it make sense. The standards have changed, not because the Constitution changed, not because the physical demands of the presidency changed, not because the global threats facing this country suddenly took a vacation. The standard changed entirely because of the occupant of the Oval Office. And the tragedy is, neither side actually wants a permanent standard. Democrats spent years protecting Joe Biden from the very same style of aggressive medical scrutiny they're now directing at Trump. Republicans are now adopting the same defensive, protective, trust the memo rhetoric that they spent 4 years calling a treasonous cover-up. That is the part that should keep you up at night, not the health of Donald Trump, not the health of Joe Biden, but the total decay of the objective baseline. We have allowed presidency transparency to become a weapon of convenience. We want our opponents stripped naked under the medical spotlight, but we want our guy wrapped in a blanket of national security privacy. History tells us the White House lies. History tells us the administrations manage the narrative. History tells us the medical information will always be filtered through the cold, hard lens of partisan survival, which means the only line of defense for the American public is the consistent, unbreakable standard that we should have.
Running the country anyway. It's obviously not Joe Biden. So who are they asking us to elect? Seriously. Is it Jill? Is it Hunter? Barack Obama? Maybe it's the ghost of corn pop.
Donald Trump was missing for 7 days. Imagine the following. An old white male president who has his third physical exam in 13 months comes out of it claiming that it's a perfect physical and they're going to publish the report within a day. It doesn't get published within a day. But 3 days later, at 11 p.m. on a Friday, they published the report. The report is clearly a bogus propaganda document making outrageous claims about the oldest president ever's incredible health. And in the middle of this, he's missing for 7 days from being on camera. What would the reaction be? The answer is, it depends who the old white president is. If it were Biden, the reaction from Republicans would be 24/7 insanity for a week. But it's Trump. And instead, it doesn't even make a headline. And then Trump finally does resurface, and he looks and sounds brutally tired and haggard, resurfacing after 7 days from being missing.
Coming in, and we're going to crack down on counterfeits. This is good for America. This is good for the people that elected you. It's good for the country.
And we have fentanyl coming in 59% less.
And we have fentanyl coming in 59% less.
Cut it by a number that nobody thought was even possible. We're going to get it a lot lower than that. But
Now, some of you, I already know, have noticed that Donald Trump's eye is even more swollen than normal. I know I've been talking about that right eye being almost completely swollen shut for years. But other people are now noticing, and many of you are noticing. Let me come back to that. If you thought that that was not going to be noticed by our team, well, just wait.
Trump hasn't had any public events in 6 days now. Nothing scheduled. The only time we've seen him was last Saturday, and he didn't look well, and it was while he was driving to his golf club. Here he is from Saturday, not looking too great. Pretty unusual for this president, who is actively engaged with the press, wanting to do press conferences. He was supposed to be doing them with Caroline Leavitt being out on maternity leave, but instead today he sent out Dr. Oz to do the press conference. So where's Trump at? Why is he not engaging with the press? Why isn't he doing public events? This is leading to a lot of speculation because of his medical report being done on Tuesday, followed by the cabinet meeting. And then that was the last time we saw him in the public. That was on May 27th. And then we saw him photographed in the vehicle on May 30th. And we haven't seen him since. His medical report from his physical exam raised more questions than delivered answers. And we demand to know what's going on. Let me know if you agree. Follow along for more, share, and I'll see you back here for the follow-up.
Donald Trump just made his first live appearance in over a week. Everyone has been wondering where he's been. And it is very obvious that this man is sick. That's why he's been hiding. I mean, look at his face. He does not look well. The eyes are puffy. His whole face is swollen. I mean, look at his eyes. They're like bloodshot red. And obviously he had a lot of incoherent rambling. But that's something he's been doing for years. But look what he says about Caitlin Collins. For no reason.
CNN will believe it because they knew what was going on. They're crooked as hell. CNN's a very corrupt organization, but with a corrupt reporter standing right there. Never smiles. She never smiles. She's a young, beautiful woman, never smiles. I never see a smile off her face. I see her standing there with hatred in her eyes, like she has hatred because we have borders, because we have a strong military, because we cut our taxes, because we do things that everybody wanted.
Donald Trump's recent absence from public events is raising fresh questions about his health after the U.S. president went nearly a week without a major public appearance. Please follow us for more updates. The unusual break came just days after Trump's latest medical examination, where White House doctors declared the 79-year-old president to be in excellent health. Trump celebrated the results, saying the checkup went perfectly, and even claimed he feels as good as he did 50 years ago. His physician also reported that Trump scored highly on a cognitive assessment and showed strong overall physical health. But some medical experts have questioned whether the report included enough detailed information to fully support those conclusions. The situation has attracted even more attention because Trump will soon turn 80 and has frequently criticized other politicians, including former President Joe Biden, over concerns about age and mental fitness. Online speculation intensified after observers noticed that Trump had not held a major public event for several days following the medical report. At the same time, questions continue surrounding visible bruising on his hands and previous reports of circulation issues, which the White House says are being properly managed. Despite the rumors, Trump has continued working behind the scenes. Reports indicate he recently held conversations with foreign leaders and remained actively involved in national security and diplomatic matters. Still, with the 2026 political season heating up, every public appearance, or absence, by the oldest president in American history is likely to face intense scrutiny.
Watch this. Shocking news. Donald Trump finally crawled back into view after 6 days missing from the public eye, and the results are absolutely stunning. In our heartbreaking story today, the picture of health president resurfaced in a pre-recorded interview, looking crazy swollen and slurring through comments that left everyone wondering if he was okay. After his fourth medical checkup at Walter Reed this year, Trump rambled to the New York Post about Netanyahu, bragging that without him, there would be no Israel, while claiming Democrats emptied jails and sent 11,888 murderers pouring into America. He casually admitted keeping everyone anxious and confused is good, praised his perfect cognitive test score, and boasted about the economy hitting all-time highs 71 times in his second term. The orange presidential peacock just kept going, mixing up names and repeating how great everything is. Classic Trump chaos. Welcome to the circus.
Warmth of a job, an economy, a community, a family. And for too long, you saw Democrats who were telling these coal miners that they should just learn the code. And what we saw during the Biden administration at the EPA, for example, was regulation after regulation after regulation, trying to strangulate out of existence
has not been seen publicly in 6 days.
See? Because for 4 years, we were told that every stumble mattered. Every cough mattered, every vacation mattered, every doctor's visit mattered, every attendance mattered, appearance mattered. Okay. Every speech mattered. We were told that transparency was the most important thing in the world. We were told that the American people deserved the answers. We were told that the president looked tired, looked old, sounded weak, disappeared from public view, even for a short time. Then the country was facing some kind of constitutional crisis. Those were not Democrat arguments. Those were Republican arguments. Okay. Those were the standards they created. Those were the rules they demanded. And now suddenly those rules don't apply anymore. Suddenly the president can disappear for 8 days and nobody cared. A president disappears from public view for more than a week. There's problems. Questions start circulating. People notice he looks exhausted, swollen, more haggard, appears drained, appears older than he did just days before. And the same people who spent years demanding constant updates about Biden have no curiosity about it whatsoever. No hearings, no investigations, no demand for medical records. And when we do get the medical records, we know they're lying about the medical records. No speculation about his cognitive decline, no trolling about him. We don't hear nothing, just silence. And that silence tells you something, because this was never really about transparency. It was never really about standards. It was never really about accountability. It was all about politics for the Republicans. The standard was never the public deserves answers. The standard was the public deserves answers when it hurts the other side. Yeah, but not on our guy. That's the difference. If Joe Biden advanced for 8 days during his presidency, every conservative network in America would have been running countdown clocks. They would have had panels every night. They would have demanded explanations every hour. They would have called it to cover up before the first 24 hours had even passed. We all know that. We all know that that's the way they operate. They know it. Everybody watching knows it. And that's why the silence is so revealing. The absence isn't the interest. The reaction to the absence is the story. Because once again, we're being reminded that there are two completely different sets of rules operating in American politics. One standard for the Democrats, another standard for the Republicans. One standard for Biden, one standard for Trump. And you can support Trump if you want to. You can vote Republican if you want to. You can disagree with Democrats if you want to. That's right. That's your right. But at least be honest enough to admit when the standards suddenly change. At least be honest enough to admit that if this were happening under a Democratic president, this was happening with Joe Biden, the outrage would be off the charts. Because all I hear in this comment section, Donald Trump, the best president. Donald Trump is partisan. When transparency only matters when the other party is in power, it ain't transparency anymore. It's political theater. And when a president can disappear from public view for days, reappear looking noticeably tired, swollen, old, and his own supporters refuse to ask the damn hard, basic questions, then the issue is no longer the president. The issue is whether we've become so tribal, so separate, that people would rather protect a politician than demand the truth. You would rather protect a president other than demand the truth. And that to me is far more dangerous, because that means you're not as patriotic as somebody who would tell the truth, who would demand the answers. The president's temporary absence should be noted, and everybody should be made aware of it. That's wild. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate it. I have this kind of content every night, 10 p.m., Monday through Thursday. And then, maybe sporadically during the weekend, but mostly Monday through Thursday. I appreciate you guys coming out. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video. Please. And this is Petty Politic, the Petty Politic. And I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys.